Well, yes, the Cleveland Browns won last week in an easy victory over a team that is in a worse state of affairs than the Cleveland Browns is, and it's not even close. The win definitely brings a little more positivity in the locker room, just a general better feeling among the entire organization. But a game this week against the New England Patriots would probably go a lot longer as far as a satisfaction standpoint if the Browns are able to make this road trip and able to pull out a victory over a Patriots team that is certainly on an upkick. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate each and every one of you that make your way to the OBR every single day, whether it's the OBR.com for the best Cleveland Browns written content there is. While you're here or there, make sure you look into the VIP access, insider forums, ask the insiders. Your subscription gets bundled with Paramount Plus, a big dividend that will start paying even more come January with UFC. And for everybody who comes out to the OBR streaming network daily, beginning at 6 p.m. with Browns 3D, we greatly appreciate you all. Highly recommend that you are subscribed to the OBR on YouTube and, of course, the OBR over on Twitch. So, the good feeling, the good vibes of Sunday over the Miami Dolphins are something that this franchise desperately needs to keep going. Play Sunday against the New England Patriots, then it's the bye week. To be able to hit the bye week for the Cleveland Browns on a 2-game winning streak, get that extra week, know the New York Jets are waiting for you after the bye is a really advantageous situation for the Cleveland Browns. But it's only as advantageous as the Browns can make Sunday's game. My beginning thoughts on the Patriots is, this team sitting here at 5-2. It's come quickly. I think we all kind of had our beliefs on what Mike Vrabel was going to be able to do for this Patriots franchise. Mike is a no-nonsense guy due to the fact that he gets so highly involved in every aspect. When things are going well, a franchise, its roster obviously rally around a personality like Mike Vrabel. It certainly hits different when you have a guy who was part of all the massive success the New England Patriots had, when you have a direct, firsthand guy who was just as responsible as many others in the success in that amazing run of that franchise. It's the perfect guy to kind of have carrying the head coach title for the New England Patriots, even if it isn't exactly right after Bill Belichick. But if anybody was key to the success of that franchise, if anybody can show as a former player, now a coach, that, it takes whatever you can give to be a winner. Mike Vrabel, full-time D ends, spot duty tight ends, and obviously had a miraculous role as a spot duty tight end for that Patriot franchise. So this team, in my opinion, is probably here a little earlier than anticipated at 5-2, already currently leading the AFC East, which, kind of just seems like a shock to say that anybody in the AFC East is in first place other than the Buffalo Bills, who have had such a stranglehold on that division for just so long. Drake Maye is in year 2, and there were certainly signs in year 1. But in year 2, Drake Maye is really, kind of just finding his zone, his comfort level. And I think the thing that comes away that's probably most impressive with Drake Maye's game to this point is how it's being done in the vertical passing game. A player at his age shouldn't necessarily just be cruising as well with the deep ball the way that Drake May is. And he's really just kind of got it going on right now. A touchdown interception ratio of 12-2 is just crazy, crazy good for a guy in only year two. They don't run the ball all that great. Overall, the team is running for less than 4 yards per carry. And I'm assuming, and we always talk about obviously the relationship with Browns fans as far as Ohio State fans. I think one of the biggest things that kind of stands out right away for you guys and for all of us is a guy who was probably their most impressive skill player during the preseason and former Ohio State Buckeye running back Travion Henderson really isn't doing much of anything to this point. He had a touchdown in every preseason game. He is not playing on that level right now, running for about 3.5 yards per carry, not really highly involved in the passing game. 6 yards. I think it's 16 for about 100 as a receiver. Has scored one touchdown. Has scored, yes, one touchdown. I'm sorry, zero touchdowns for Travion Henderson at this point. It was such a hot topic debate, certainly during the draft process. Then, of course, when the Browns drafted Judkins, New England came back a couple picks later and drafted Travion Henderson. I do, remember draft night and night two. And, we were hearing obviously that the Browns were interested in a Ohio State running back. I think for most of us, we just kind of went with whoever our preferred back was here at the OBR. I won't hide from it. I really, was highly impressed with Travion Henderson. And I liked the role Travion Henderson could possibly have brought to the table. And, his pass pro was incredible. The receiving aspect, the running aspect. We knew the Browns were probably going to draft multiple running backs. Browns obviously went with Judkins, who they probably felt was a little bit more of a bell cow type back. And Browns took some hits right after the draft for a lot of, people who thought that Travion Henderson was the better running back. It certainly didn't help over the summer. Well, Quinshon Judkins was, basically in isolation dealing with, the off-field matter. And Travion Henderson was just putting up big play after big play during the preseason. But, then eventually the rubber met the road. And, you know, from week two, Quinshon Judkins active in the lineup. And it's been a really, really nice run for Quinshon Judkins to this point. I believe it's about 4.3 yards per carry to this point. Coming off a 3-touchdown game last Sunday against New England. I'm sorry, against the Miami Dolphins. Showing a little wildcat for a couple of scores last Sunday. Will Henderson, appears to be struggling and, appears maybe even more that he's kind of in the doghouse of Mike Vrabel. Certainly a place you don't want to be. Mike Vrabel will put you in the doghouse, but it takes a whole lot to get you out of Mike Vrabel's doghouse. So that's kind of really had a damper on the Patriots running game to this point. Ramondre Stevenson is kind of their lead back, and it's not really that impressive from what Stevenson is giving to you this point either. With it's only 200 and change, about 250 yards to this point for Stevenson. Again, he's at the same 3.6 yards per carry average that Travion Henderson is. And then you get to the receivers, and it's amazing what Stephon Diggs is actually doing right now. As, shortly removed as he is, from the ACL and the recovery and all that, the fact that, he's already out there and he's been out there the entire regular season to this point, around 40 receptions. So it's obviously, finding a niche with Drake May. I believe a guy like Stephon Diggs can probably become even more dangerous for this New England team as the weeks and months go on, as, just gets a little more confidence within the knee, just gets a little more strength and continued strength within the knee. But it's been a great start, of course, for Stephon Diggs to this point. 39 receptions, 450 yards. Oddly enough, no touchdowns to this point. The guy you would certainly look for. And this was a name I really brought up a lot over the summer because at the time, the Patriots had this deep wide receiver room. One of those guys, Kendrick Bourne, obviously now with the 49ers. They've traded away Polk, who was going to be out for the year anyway. Javon Baker did not make this team. So that deep wide receiver room for the New England Patriots certainly, tightened up quickly. One of the names I had labeled that I thought could be something for the Browns to maybe go in and claim for themselves, Kayshon Boutte. And I was always a Kayshon Boutte guy, even, during the draft process, didn't test well at the combine, but, it's not hard to watch LSU film and evaluate wide receivers. They just pump them out literally like Toyotas, for God's sakes, from the assembly line down in Baton Rouge. And while Kayshon Boutte only has 20 receptions to this point, he has found pay dirt 4 times. So becoming a prime target for Drake Maye in, the toughest of situations. Hunter Henry's still there, getting it done as a tight end. He's got 3 receptions to this point. Old friend Austin Hooper, part of this New England offense, not doing a ton, but when you kick Austin Hooper a little further down the food chain, the higher his value is. Certainly not a tight end one at this point in his career anymore, but certainly a guy that is a viable option and certainly, developing a little bit of a rapport with Drake May himself. So this is going to be, a lot different in my opinion. Look, the weather slated for Sunday in New England should be typical late October weather, right around in the 50-degree mark. Tad bit of a breeze. It'll be overcast because it's always overcast in New England in late October. A little bit of wind, but precipitation certainly will not be part of it. Pretty much ideal playing conditions for a 1 o'clock start Sunday in New England. Now, when you get to where the Patriots are, and this defense has been crazy impressive to this point. I mean, the first thing that sticks out to you is that through 7 games, this New England Patriot team has not allowed a 50-yard rusher yet. There has not been one guy to this point that has eclipsed 50 yards. So obviously for Cleveland and their offense, and the best thing they've got going right now for their offense is, of course, his rookie running back, Quinshon Judkins. This is your first, something's got to give. Judkins has been on a really, really solid run here over the last few weeks. New England just doesn't really budge. So now the numbers kind of skewed last week. Obviously, Quinshon Judkins, 95 yards after first contact last week. Quinshon Judkins only had 84 yards total last week. So while the Browns did, some production within the run game, they didn't necessarily excel within the run game last week against the Miami Dolphins. So certainly something to keep your eye on. What has been, kind of impressive for New England is the pass rush, but not necessarily the pass defense. That's kind of where they can be had, is the pass defense, and we'll continue with that. But you look at where it is, and it's Harold Landry, 5.5 sacks. Loved Harold Landry years ago, coming out of Boston College. Ended up being a first round pick, of course, for the Tennessee Titans. Chieson also there, a retread himself, former Jaguar. Milton Williams was a big splash signing for them in the offseason. A whole lot of money went towards Milton Williams. 3.5 sacks to this point. So they can get after the quarterback. And you expect that kind of from a Mike Vrabel defense. They're struggling against the pass. So again, as much as a Quinshon Judkins against the New England Patriots defense, something's got to give. This is where, you look at Dillon Gabriel and knowing that the Patriots are kind of struggling in pass defense themselves. This looks to hopefully, possibly be the opportunity. And look, it's been 3 starts for Dillon Gabriel. And I will defend his play to this point. I think a lot of people, in the critiques, and they're fair. I get it. And as are there some looks he's been missing? Was he gun shy? Just he didn't see it. All questions that we're not going to get legitimate answers to, of course. But now in his 4th start, and he has seen action now in 5 NFL games, there's going to have to be some more production from this passing offense. And yes, we can shift blame and share blame with the receiving core. We can certainly share some blame with why this passing game is not clicking, of course, with the offensive line and the pass blocking. But, first and foremost, it's going to have the finger pointed at the quarterback. It's just fair. It's just right. That's what comes with the territory of being a quarterback within the NFL. So now in start 4, it's not wrong now to start to maybe raise the expectations for Dillon Gabriel. Jerry Jeudy did not practice yesterday. Jerry Jeudy did practice today. And I would say, as far as, assigning blame, of course, to some of the lack of success of the Cleveland Browns passing game, Jerry Jeudy's name has to be as high on top of the list as anybody else's, probably, not being the quarterback, of course. The Browns, and this is where it's tough with Jerry Jeudy now. You know, whatever the issues were in Denver, you never saw the full potential of what a guy like Jerry Jeudy can be. And that was fair on Denver's part. But the Browns, now it's different. And the Browns believed in Jerry Jeudy so much, they paid him before they even got to see anything on the field. And it looked like a really smart and bold move when Jerry Jeudy put together the 2024 season that he did. Now you sit here and you look at what Jerry Jeudy is giving to this team, and it certainly, is an issue. Jerry Jeudy coming into this regular season should have been the unanimous choice for being the Cleveland Browns' biggest offensive skill player. And that has just not been the case to this point. Again, there are factors here all over the place, and there are a lot of issues within this passing game. But when you got wide receiver 1 numbers out of Jerry Jeudy last year, and to this point, you're probably getting wide receiver 3 type production out of Jerry Jeudy, that is an issue. And now the Browns, and they speak extremely well of Jerry Jeudy. And I think Jerry Jeudy to this point is handling it like a pro. The mistakes, the drops, he puts it all on himself. He's not making any excuses. He's not pointing any fingers. He soaks in all the blame there is to be had, due to his insufficient play. So you look at that, and obviously you come away impressed. And the Browns, consistently praise the work ethic, consistently, praise the extra effort that goes in, because, they're telling us directly that Jerry Jeudy is dissatisfied with his own play. All of these things are great. But if it doesn't have Jerry Jeudy turn a corner and start showing us, 7 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown, it's just lip service. That's all it is. So the Browns really need that aspect to improve. There's certainly been a shift within the wide receiver pecking order, at least from last week we saw with the Miami game, where Isaiah Bond, for about a 5-week stretch, just continually to see an uptick in more and more snaps on the offensive side of the ball, until Sunday against Miami, where he was getting outsnapped by Malachi Corley. He was getting outsnapped by Jamari Thrash. He was getting outsnapped by Gage Lavardane. And this is all good. And, at least you're getting something, but there's got to be some other consistency within this wide receiver group. And it doesn't matter. I don't think the Browns care who it is. They don't care if it's a Gage Lavardane. They don't care if it's a Malachi Corley. They don't care if it's a Jamari Thrash. Isaiah Bond finds the spot. They don't care. They want somebody to step up and at least starting to play, a sort of number 2 to their sort of number 1. This passing game just cannot rely on David Njoku, Harold Fannin, and Jerome Ford. It's not working. There's no explosiveness to it. There's no verticality to it. It's stale. It's boring. And I've kind of given Dillon Gabriel his pass. But now it's time where, you should be comfortable. You should have a better understanding of your offensive line's tendencies and a better understanding of, where would-be pass rush should be coming from. You've done a great job protecting the ball. But if this means you kind of got to get a tad bit more aggressive, you're going to have to get a tad bit more aggressive. Dillon Gabriel is going into this game opposed to one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL right now, in Drake Maye. We've already talked and discussed that the Patriots defense is not probably going to give you very many running lanes. So if the Browns can at least get 75, 100 yards on the ground, That would be a win within itself. But the real win for the Cleveland Browns and this offense would be trying to find some way to accumulate more than 200 yards passing. God forbid 250. A completion percentage somewhere in the mid 60s. I mean, I'll take Dillon Gabriel throwing an interception. You tell me I can get, a 23 for 30 for 250, two scores. I don't care if he throws an interception. The production is a hell of a lot more than the protection of the ball. The production is what's needed. The protection of the ball, that's great. But if it's not leading to points and it's not obviously leading to very many victories to this point, protecting the ball is just that, protecting the ball. So Gabriel's just going to have to continue to work at this point. And it's really going to have to start to show in some results on the field. Everybody's going to have to play in line. Obviously, the offensive line is going to need to do their job. Obviously, the receiver play, there is no question. And there was a lot of youth there as well. Dillon Gabriel is pretty much older, other than Jerry Jeudy, than any other receiver he's throwing to right now. And I get it, and that's fine, but we got to grow together here, kids. And the folks wanting for Sanders, I guess I can understand it. And, all this talk that we keep hearing about, how well practice is going, I don't doubt it. My only question in regards to that is the biggest issue with Shedeur Sanders is, avoiding pass rush. There is no way you were accurately simulating NFL pass rush in practice. It's just not happening. And it's certainly not happening for your number 2 quarterback. So this is where kind of, again, the rubber's got to meet the road for this Browns team. I have a feeling the defense is going to play extremely as well as they played last week against Miami. There's definitely probably just you're carrying yourselves at a higher esteem. They certainly want to impress old friend Mike Vrabel, who spent, almost all of 2024 with the Cleveland Browns. This defense wants, to go show Mike Vrabel, where the changes have been made this year and, hopefully the improvements this year. This is going to be an interesting one, no doubt, because, as I said, Drake Maye has zero issues throwing deep. So for Ward and Tyson Campbell, this is going to be a big one. And Campbell's coming off just an incredible week against the Miami Dolphins. You were definitely looking at, Ronnie Hickman this week here. And Ronnie Hickman mic'd up was fantastic by the Cleveland Browns. Ronnie Hickman was just really, really good in that role. But this is going to be a big test for Ronnie Hickman. This is, Ronnie Hickman usually plays pretty well with the ball in front of him. Drake Maye is going to test you and get the ball behind you. And, for safety, that's usually the ultimate test is how do you play when the ball is behind you? So all things to certainly have to consider, for this Browns defense. The fact that New England doesn't run the ball very well is probably going to line up with the fact that the Browns do stop the run well. But I don't think New England's necessarily going to care. The way Drake Maye is playing right now, that is, option number one for the Patriots offense is obviously, running the offense through Drake Maye and through the right arm of Drake Maye. Practice today, as I said, Jerry Jeudy back in the fold. Ryshawn Jenkins and Ethan Posick were not seen at the beginning part of practice. So we'll wait for an injury report to find out the ultimate on that, of course. Aiden Huntington was not seen at the early part of practice as well. With it being Thursday, you start to do the timeline of being in the concussion protocol, and it seems to me it would probably trend towards a no week of having Aiden Huntington. But Mike Hall Jr. on Wednesday recorded a full practice. So this might be the opportunity with Aiden Huntington being out, most likely with the concussion, of having Mike Hall possibly make his 2025 debut here for the Cleveland Browns. I think this game is bigger than some people may want to discuss. Look, you've got, the one win in your pocket. So things are starting to feel a little bit better. And after the bye, the probability of winning some of these games against these potential opponents is always and has always and was always, thought to be the sweet spot of this schedule for the Browns. The key to that is maybe getting W here Sunday up in Foxborough against the New England Patriots. So there, it's two straight. Go to the bye, and then get ready to come on out and face a Jets team that looks as lost as a team can be. Getting this W would be absolutely paramount. And, if you can do it on the left arm of Dillon Gabriel, if you can do it with improved wide receiver play, if you can do it with, improved pass blocking, and, I'm not a huge betting guy, but, you tell me that no running back has eclipsed 50 yards yet to this point against the New England Patriots. I would put good money on Quinshon Judkins finding a way to get that 50 yards. Quinshon Judkins, he's just put together some really long runs. And, the yards per carry is not ideal because, there are a lot of, negative ones, zeros, 1 yards, and certainly the long runs offset the short ones, of course. But if, Quinshon Judkins is on this run where he, can find daylight for, usually a 30-yard carry per game, you think there is the opportunity that he could get that here yet again, even though this New England Patriots run defense has been pretty stout, of course, to this point. Browns don't have much recent success over New England. Bailey Zappi a few years back. Before that, a trip to New England where the Browns really thought they were going to play well and some breaks just didn't go their way. A long Nick Chubb run that resulted in a fumble. I think it was inside the 3-yard line and the Patriots got back. I want to call it a statement win if the Browns were able to get that this week. But it would be huge for this team and, where they are and, the belief of, some people as to where this 2025 season could ultimately end up. So to go into New England and find a way to maybe steal this sucker, again, it's paramount. It's huge. This is a really good football team. They have flaws, but unfortunately, the flaws for the New England Patriots don't necessarily match up with some of the strengths for the Cleveland Browns. So again, a rubber meets the road. Something's got to give. The Browns defense, my belief is they're going to come in here sky high. They know it's Mike Vrabel on the other sideline. Obviously, some great relationships were built in 2024. They want to get after Drake Maye. They want to rattle him. That 2 interception number, Browns would love to get that number doubled to 4. Give themselves a shot, after the 4 turnover performance that this Browns defense had last week. This is a big one. This team is going to be focused. I think this team is going to be ready. And it's time for this team to maybe start setting a bar and playing at a little bit of a bar higher level than most of us are accustomed to at this point from this Browns team. We'll get you a pregame show tomorrow, close out the week, and then, of course, we'll do a postgame show on Sunday. Usually Pete and I, anybody else wants to jump in from the OBR, they're always more than welcome if they have the time. But we appreciate all of you, for coming to the OBR.com every day for the best Cleveland Browns coverage there is. While you're there, look into the insider package, the insider forums, the Ask the Insiders. Have your subscription bundled with a subscription, of course, to Paramount Plus, which will get you a nice turnaround come January, of course, with all the UFC action. Thanks again for all of you tuning in daily, nightly, weekly, monthly to the OBR streaming network. Make sure you're subscribed to the OBR on YouTube. Of course, make sure you are subscribed to the OBR on Twitch. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And we will talk to y'all tomorrow.